Thank you for meeting with us at the CIO conference. We had a great time and I hope you learned a lot. Right now, what we're going to do is review our presentation on unmanaged data and the risks it's posing to enterprise organizations. For those of you who'd like to download this presentation, it's below. And if you'd like to go ahead and skip to scheduling a consult with one of our experts, you can also do that. For those of you who have not seen this presentation before, go ahead and sit back, relax, and at the end, make sure you take advantage of all of the offers that we're providing for you guys. They're a great value, and you should really dive into all of those. Unmanaged data. Hopefully, every single one of you are having this problem. And that problem is, as your organization is growing, you're taking on a lot of new data very, very quickly. But you're not managing it properly, if you're really being honest with yourself. Unmanaged data is putting your organization at risk. And I know when I talk about risk, most of you immediately go security. But we're not going to be talking about security today, although that is something that we should talk about at a later date. What I really want to talk about is all the unseen ways, or the ways you haven't considered, that are putting your data at risk. Most importantly, the performance of your data. Data performance is the #1 factor in keeping your applications up and available. But what is data performance? How do you define it? This is actually something that you need to determine as a business. There's no good technical definition of data performance. So what I like to do is give guidelines to how you can discuss data performance at your organization. But these are the 3 key factors in data performance. 1, access. Can all of your users access what they need and only what they need? 2, reliability. How's your uptime? How are your application speeds? Is everyone able to access the data appropriately, or are they waiting too long before they get it? Thirdly, scalability, and this is one that really bites growing organizations. Will your systems work tomorrow? When you buy your competitor, when your sales team exceeds their quota and triples or quadruples your end customers and users, will everything still work and function properly? Do you have seasonal or cyclical problems? For example, healthcare insurance industry is going to be extremely busy November, December, January, and maybe not as busy the rest of the year. Or in retail, do you have a busy season? Is summer your busy season? Is Christmas shopping your busy season? Whatever it is, are you ready to handle those busy periods in your organization? And I'd like to take all of you a minute while I'm speaking to go ahead and write down some of the important KPIs that your organization has around data performance. Because after this presentation, I want you to go back and actually think about what data performance means to your organization and what would happen if you were able to improve that data performance. Would it help you meet deadlines better? Would it cut down on your customer requests? You were able to make things more reliable and faster? Were you able to meet your budgets better if things weren't crashing and you're constantly diverting resources to stability of your environment? These are all things I'd like you guys to think about and jot down some notes about KPIs and what are the important ones. And if I've not covered any of those things, go ahead and send them to me. You should have my email, it'll be below. So go ahead and let me know what are the important KPIs around data performance that you guys are tracking. So, data performance. Why aren't companies getting it right? Let me know if this sounds familiar to you. Your CEO gives you a call and says, hey, we're having user complaints. I need you to fix this issue immediately, high priority, get it done today. So what you do, obviously, is gather all of your department heads, your sysadmins, your network people, everybody else, your hardware and cloud vendors come in via Zoom, and you all talk about the problems you're having and you try to troubleshoot it. Typically what happens in these scenarios is the ability to get to the root cause of the problem is not available for a variety of reasons, expertise, tooling, etc. So sysadmins are going to blame network blames code blames cloud or hardware, and the cloud and hardware vendors say, sure, I can fix it. It's just going to cost you 30% more next month and every other month after that. And that becomes hugely problematic. It kills your budget. It doesn't address the root of the problem, so eventually it will probably come back, thus causing more costs and more budget issues. And your team, instead of focusing on troubleshooting the root cause of the problem and resolving your data performance problems, instead is just trying to shift blame so it doesn't come back and make them look bad. And as an enterprise IT leader, it's your duty to empower your team to be productive and to have these meetings in a way where you're looking for the root cause of the issue, not doing band-aid fixes, and enabling your team to show off how good they are at troubleshooting and solving problems is by proactively monitoring the environment, because at least 60% of all of your downtime and slowness problems can be prevented with the right monitoring and prevention tools and analysis. And when problems do arise, you need to have the ability with both the tooling and expertise to quantify the problems and resolve them very, very quickly. So why is all this important to you and not just your organization? A few weeks ago, I was actually doing some research online and I found these stats and they shocked me. Because 34% of all CIOs who were let go, when surveyed, said massive application failures were the #1 reason they were let go. Other reasons were project deadline failures and ignoring customer issues. Those rounded out the three largest reasons why CIOs were let go of their positions. And this is hugely telling to me because, to be honest, those three issues are essentially the entire job. And you absolutely must hit all three of those. It reminds me of an old paradigm. I'm sure all of you are familiar with this chart here on the left. Good, fast, and cheap, right? You can only have two of those, not all three. When we were project managers, lower level IT, this was a conversation we would have to have with higher ups all the time, right? I can build this application, I can get it done in 30 days if we spend X dollars bringing on subcontractors and more people, or it's going to take 6 months, but we can do that with all the staff we have in-house and it will be cheaper. Which one do you want to do, right? Or you can cut back on quality and get it done cheap and quick. But you can never have cheap, good, and fast at the same time, right? Old paradigm. New paradigm, you're now in charge of an enterprise organization and the paradigm has shifted. Now the three prongs to your responsibilities are stability, deadlines, and customer issues. Unfortunately, the next part of the paradigm is the same. You typically only have the budget to do two of those things. And because deadlines and customer issues are directly tied to revenue, those are the ones your board of directors, your CEO, your CFO are going to push you to focus on. But it's still your responsibility to keep everything up and stable. Because if that gets dropped, you're still going to be left holding the bag and people asking you, why did everything fail? And blaming you for the results. And this is all happening. They're pushing more and more responsibilities on you. And all of these responsibilities come with brand new problems. And you have to figure out a way to stay ahead of them so that you can keep things stable, so that you can hit your deadlines, so you can meet those customer requests. And you need to be able to do this without exploding your headcount, which is one of the most important aspects of your job and where your budget can get out of control. And one of the ways that you miss on that triangle we were just speaking about is because you don't have the expertise in-house to hit all of those things. So how can we do absolutely everything without blowing up the budget, without blowing up headcount? That's the important thing. How can we stay ahead on all three aspects of the triangle for stability, project deadlines, and customer requests? Very simple. I'm going to give you 4 steps to doing it. Number 1, automation. Automate the time-consuming maintenance of your data environment, specifically down at the database level, which is the level that gets ignored the most in enterprise organizations. Proactively monitor the entire application stack. Again, don't forget the database layer, because once you're proactively monitoring the entire application stack, you're able to prevent at least 60% of the downtime problems your organization is facing or threaten your organization. After you do that, you'll be able to do the proper steps of following your alerts, following your automation, following your proactive monitoring, and implementing the root cause solutions to all of your issues. And when issues still arise, because they will, you need to have the tooling in place and the proper training to address those problems immediately. I'm going to put this in a different way. One of the reasons why you're not able to keep your environment stable and preventatively take care of problems is because it takes too long to figure out how to do it. It's a lot faster to throw money at the problem by increasing your cloud spend or your hardware spend. However, If you're following all of this properly and you're doing your preventative maintenance and you're doing your preventative automation and you have the right tools to diagnose problems, you can fit really nicely into the 80-20 rule, right? Because 80% of solving any problem is actually diagnosing what the problem is. And then the last 20% is actually implementing the solution. So if you can cut out all of the time it takes to do that first 80% of diagnosis by automating it with the right tooling and the right expertise, then the only thing that's left to do is the last 20% of implementing the solution. So after you've used the proper tooling, the proper automation to diagnose the solution, you still need the expertise in how to resolve it. A lot of you might already have that in-house, so the right tools will solve the problem. Some of you have great talent in-house that lack training, so the right training on the tools could solve the problem. And you always want to make sure you're training on those tools because you do not want to spend lots of money on shelfware. That is a terrible problem that a lot of organizations are facing. But for those of you who need to have your teams focused on projects and customer responses, which a lot of you do, what do you do in that case? That's where we come in. At Soaring Eagle Data Solutions, we help IT leaders just like you secure, govern, tune, and use your data. What does that mean? We're a database administration MSP. We're not your standard IT provider. We're fully onshore DBAs that are trained specifically in server uptime and reliability. Growing from that, our organization has actually completed its first acquisition of a Power BI data analytics firm, expanding our offerings, helping you with Microsoft Fabrics, Power BI, and most of the other data analytics solutions. We offer security services, but honestly, what you really want to concentrate on is using us for database administration, server reliability, data architecture and performance, borrowing our cloud expertise, getting our training so your teams can move up a notch and stop putting problems with SQL code into prod. Migrations, analytics, we do this via consulting as well as full 24/7 operational managed services. I'm going to give you an example of how this plays out in real life. So, one of our larger clients is a $2 billion hospital located right here in Tampa Bay. About 6 years ago, they first brought us on because they were having problems with server uptime. Now, you may not know this, but almost everything in a hospital runs off of a SQL Server these days. Hospitals average about 324 licenses of SQL Server. That's a heck of a lot of servers because everything is a SaaS product in a hospital. And a lot of organizations that aren't in healthcare are facing the same thing. For example, a few years ago, my wife was in the hospital with complications from pregnancy, and she had to have an infusion pump to get extra blood and medicine pumped into her. And I learned later that that infusion pump is actually hooked up to a SQL Server in the back closet. If everything is running off SQL Server, then you cannot skip the maintenance of these systems because when they go down, it costs a fortune. The average server downtime problem in a hospital costs $324,000 in direct revenue, plus all of the indirect impacts on patient experience and health and reputation hits when people are upset because their appointments got canceled when your systems were down. They're going to schedule at a different hospital with a more reliable system next time. So let's talk a little bit. This hospital had 125 instances of SQL Server that were mission critical, and they had 3 full-time DBAs dedicated just to the server uptime and reliability of these systems. And that actually tracks. Gartner, Microsoft, and a couple of the other big guys actually recommend 1 full-time production DBA for every 40 instances of SQL that you have just to keep them up and running smoothly. And this hospital was doing that and not being successful. Their team could not keep these 125 instances of SQL up and running properly. They were having downtime issues, and it was causing problems as this hospital was growing. They were organically taking on more customers, more patients, growing more outpatient centers, taking on more data, and this hospital was acquiring smaller hospitals. So they're bringing on even more data and even more users at a very rapid pace, making their systems even more critical to the organization as more users were being added. So as they were failing to meet their project deadlines and their data integration deadlines, they turned to Soaring Eagle Data Solutions to help them with the server uptime. The proper response here was multiple fold. First, what we did was install the proper tooling. In this case, it was SolarWinds Database Performance Analyzer, or DPA, as well as our own in-house built system, Flight Monitoring. This allowed us to do a couple of things. 1, automate all of the maintenance. 2, proactively monitor for the most common issues leading to server downtime and slowness and prevent them. And 3, really get granular. With the diagnosis of the entire application stack and resolving the issues that we find there. After proactive tuning, maintenance, and supplementing with 24/7 onshore database administration experts, these servers had a complete turnaround. As a matter of fact, these 125 servers we found were actually far too many, and we actually decreased the SQL Server licensing, because after you get your servers up and running properly, you actually don't need as many. Many IT leaders make this mistake. You think the best way and only way to get good performance out of your servers is to set up new ones every time. But you don't have to. Most organizations should be able to cut between 20 and 40% of their SQL licensing if you tune the environment properly and save you a small fortune. In this case, we went from 125 down to about 80. And this put a huge chunk of money back into the organization that they desperately needed so that they could reinvest it into other projects. This was all so successful that the person who brought us in was able to expand their authority at this hospital and increase their responsibilities. Now, he is overseeing more than 400 servers, all of which are being monitored by Soaring Eagle Data Solutions. And those 3 DBAs he had full-time dedicated to server uptime and maintenance have been moved completely to projects and customer response, including data integrations for all of that new data. This way, they have more than 3 times as many servers being monitored, and it's costing less than a third of what they did before. So that's 9-to-1 return on their investment, because they're getting 3 times the amount of work for about 1/3 of the cost. And on top of that, they're meeting their deadlines, they're able to handle customer requests, and they're handling fewer customer requests, since a lot of customer requests actually come down to things aren't working, they're crashing, please fix it, and hitting those with Band-Aid fixes. If you can stop those Band-Aid fixes, you save a lot of time. In addition, database performance and tuning is not the only thing we've done for this organization. Every time they need us, we're able to supply experts with SSIS, Power BI, security, and about anything else that touches their data that they need, which allows them to effectively expand the expertise they have in-house without adding to headcount or incurring extra costs of any kind. Earlier, we said that in order to effectively manage your environment and keep it stable, you need to automate, monitor, prevent, and diagnose. Here's how you're going to do that. First of all, you're going to install flight monitoring software on your database environment. Especially if you have a larger environment, you really need this to make sure your maintenance is being done across your entire system. One of the most frequently missed aspects of database maintenance is actually database corruption checks. And what we've seen far too often is an organization will invest millions of dollars into a disaster recovery system, back up all of their data, only to find out it's not recoverable because it's corrupted. Doing your DBCCs is not optional. And the only way to really make sure it's being done is to automate it and create alerting around it and then do testing. That's just one of the ways that flight monitoring software is going to make your data more reliable. Next, you need root cause diagnosis of the problems in your application stack, starting at the data layer. Database Performance Analyzer from SolarWinds is the best product on the market for this. Sorry if you're a fan of something else, it's just true. One of the best aspects of DPA is that it works on almost every DBMS. SQL, Oracle, Postgres, you name it, DPA is almost certain to run on it and be able to diagnose what's happening in the environment. This is perfect because it's easy to use, it's intuitive, and it visualizes the problem, allowing you to clearly see what's happening in the environment and how to resolve it. And for full application stack monitoring, hybrid cloud observability from SolarWinds again is a fantastic piece of software. Everything from security settings to network settings to being able to adjust your VMware settings, all of it in one place. And when you combine all of these, you get to benefit from the integrations across all of them and reduce your alert fatigue. Consolidating your monitoring, making sure you're not being double and triple alerted all of the time, making sure that the alerts you get are actually actionable and not just waste of time that are waking you up for no reason. So for those of you who have stuck around, let's go ahead and review what we're offering today. First of all, let's get a free trial of DPA onto your system. With that free trial, we're going to give you 1 hour with our CEO, Jeff Garbus. He has written 20 books on database performance and management. He will use DPA to uncover things that you do not know about your database environment and show you things that you can improve to make it more stable. In addition to that, with our first engagement, do a health check or other project, we will take $1,100 off of the first engagement. If you sign on for managed services, we'll onboard your first 10 servers for free. It's a savings of about $2,500. Altogether, it's about a $4,000 value, and we're looking to get started with you guys right now. So, let me ask you this question. Would this help you? Would it make your life and your team's life easier? Would you be able to more easily hit project deadlines and handle customers if the stability of your environment was in peak condition?